Hello everybody, welcome to our Q&A number 6, and today it's a nice beautiful day here in Florida. Finally, it's been a long hot fall, but it's finally starting to cool off a little bit. There is a bird up here behind me who will probably start singing a little bit and might get a little annoying, so I apologize for that ahead of time. Arnie 1 Mile and G, aka Flash, asked me, can you sure describe where your knee pain was when you had it, and did the Chopat brace help when you wore it? I first hurt my knee coming down Blood Mountain, and I had those single band knee braces that go under the patella, and that seemed to help a lot, and that pain felt like it was up underneath the patella. That seemed to kind of work a little bit. I hurt my knee again in the Smokies after Gatlinburg, I believe, if I remember right. I was going under some a blowdown on the trail and on top of a sloped rock that was in the trail, and with mud on the boots, and I started to slip, and it kind of felt another tear up underneath the knee as I went down. Eventually, I went to just trying to do a knee brace, just a full knee brace. And one of the subscribers at the time recommended these Chopats, which is a kind of a double brace. And so I got those, and that helped out immensely, and I wore those pretty religiously through all of the rest of my hike in 2016 up to Luray. This last year I got a little bit bigger pair, because at the time my wife sent it to me, I lost quite a bit of weight. So, but unfortunately I gained weight when I got back off the trail, and the Chopats that she had were mediums. They didn't quite fit, so I got a pair of large. And that seemed to, and in 2017 I was wearing them. They were working really well, and but then apparently I developed an allergic reaction to the neoprene. At first I thought I had chiggers, that I laid the Chopats down on the grass and the chiggers got on them, and then, you know, and then up underneath them. But because of the type of reaction I was having, the urgent care at Fayetteville, Pennsylvania, thought that I was actually having an allergic reaction, so I stopped wearing them. I'll tell you what actually helped the best, and that is learning about the IT band stretch. I will put in the description here a link to a YouTube channel. These two physical therapists. There's 3 stretches. One of them uses kind of a roller, and that doesn't really work to take on the trail. But there's a stretch you can do when you're laying down, which I would do in the morning, and I would do it at night. And then there's one that you can do while you're like leaning against they have a wall, but tree works great. And so during the day I would do those. A lot of knee pain comes from too tight of the IT, that tendon that runs down from your hip down the outside of your leg and then around your knee. That's called the IT band, and if that gets too tight, it causes patella misalignment. Very common in women. Okay, some patellas get misaligned at birth, but almost always in women, once you start having children, and your body changes, i.e. your hips spread to prepare for birth, all those tendons get kind of moved around and reshaped and sometimes misaligned. Women can really benefit from doing the IT band stretch if they tend to have knee pain. So something I recommend. Now Todd, he says, hey, I really enjoyed this video, and I think it's because you realistically answer your questions, user questions, and not try to sugarcoat your responses. And I hope I really don't try and sugarcoat anything. I pretty much try to tell you the way it is. Anyway, he says, what did hikers do before the internet age as far as planning, and how did they survive without the AT guide and gut hook? That's a good question. I had kind of wondered the same thing. Slippery Storm, one of the subscribers, chimed in. He said that he used a map and a compass and relied upon gas stations for resupply. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, I remember hiking with my sons in the mid-90s on the AT there in the George Washington National Forest, and we did the whole 3 ridges, and they were around the Priest. And I remember going to an outfitter store there, Blue Ridge Mountain Sports in Virginia, and bought bought a map of that section of the Appalachian Trail that was produced by the Conservancy. So there were good quality maps back then, and but when I was in Hot Springs, I stayed at Elmer's Sunnybank Inn. Elmer, he was about 80. He had hiked the AT, through hiked it in the mid 70s. And it was interesting talking with him and about that. And he said that their packs averaged 80 pounds. Some of it was because just the materials were not lightweight. There was no such thing as ultralight or lightweight. I mean, an empty backpack may be 8 or 10 pounds. You know, they ended up with probably more canned goods than they would have liked, because there wasn't the proliferation of dehydrated, easy to fix meals, and their resupply was so far apart that they really had to haul a lot. So, you know, hats off to the guys back in the the 70s that did this with 80-pound packs, and it's pretty amazing that they were able to do this. So I mean, life has gotten easier. I mean, Gut Hook is a compass and a map, if you will. It's just electronic instead of a physical one. So, but having the GPS is kind of nice, knowing, not having to guess where you are. There's the Boy Scouts, they teach orienteering. Orienteering is map reading, and being able to figure out where you are through survival school. We had to do triangulations off of mountain peaks to be able to find out where we're at, and that stuff is kind of cool, but not everybody gets to learn that. So it's kind of nice that we have these other tools available to us. Then Todd follows up and says, hey, I have a second question. He said, I just came back from a quick 3-day hike on the AT and saw numerous toilet paper wads near the trail. What was your experience with such nastiness while doing your through hike, and why do you think people who are out hiking because they love nature can be so disrespectful to it as well as to other hikers? Most of the time when I experienced a lot of the little florets of toilet tissue that were along the trail, a lot of those were around really popular day hiking areas, and I think a lot of those were probably female day hikers who needed to take a tinkle. All right, they don't know about leave no trace. They don't understand the concept of digging a cat hole, things like that. Most female through hikers they have a pee rag. Okay, it's a bandana that's dedicated to wiping, and they then put that on the back of their pack so it can dry as they hike, and the ultraviolet radiation from the sun actually will disinfect and sanitize, if you will, that pee rag. So they typically don't stink, okay, and they'll wash them periodically as they go along. That keeps the amount of toilet paper on the trail down. So essentially, a girl can do like a guy does and just urinate and then move on. So if the next question coming up is, what about the monthly cycle, the menstrual cycle? Doppel, who's her trail name, I think she hiked in 2015. I think her YouTube channel is like Maori on the Trail, Mauri perhaps, or there might be a W in there. Maori on the Trail. She had some pre-departure stuff where she talked about diva cups. That's as far as I'm going to go. I watched the thing and I thought, this is way more information than I ever want to know. But if you're a female hiker and you're wondering about those issues, go check her channel out and look at some of those first pre-hike videos where she discussed the feminine needs, if you will, on the trail. So let's see. Fred McClure asks, did you find yourself wanting to stay up late, or did you just mainly pass out and go to sleep? What about socializing and talking to people out on the trail? At the beginning of the trail, everybody's excited, and there's always somebody building a fire. Some people are cooking on the fire religiously. They didn't bring a stove, and so they're gonna heat up their water on the fire. So there's a little bit of socialization that kind of occurs at that period of time. Most of it happens when people are eating or they're doing their meal prep. Then there's something called hiker midnight, and hiker midnight is when the sun goes down, it's dark. You know, not everybody wants to just be burning up their batteries and their headlamps, and nobody wants to be, you know, flashing, you know, their headlamps in people's eyes. So usually when it gets dark, everybody just goes to bed. And in the winter, you know, February, that's early. You know, 5 o'clock, it's dark, and you're trying to get some sleep. Now, at the beginning, you're really tired anyway, and what you find, you can go to sleep pretty quickly, and then you wake up about 11 o'clock, like you've had a really great nap, and then you struggle the rest of the night to actually kind of sleep. Once I got really used to hiking on the trail, and it hit hiker midnight, and you go to bed, a lot of times I would just lay there. I had a little MP3 player with some audio stuff on it that I would kind of listen to kind of help out. If you had a good cell signal, you see a lot of people doing their trail journal entries and things like that during that period of time. You know, at the beginning of the trail, at least to Damascus, there's a lot of marijuana that's smoked around campfires, and things get passed around. After Damascus, most of those folks have run out of money and are not on the trail anymore, and you don't really experience that very often unless it's some section hikers that might bring some of that with them. Most of my socializing probably occurred during that dinner time when you're making your meal and you're eating, and you get to talk to people and meet people and things like that. But once the hiker midnight, and even those that wanted to stay up are really, they really do a good job of being respectful to everybody else who's in bed. You don't have a lot of, you know, hooting and hollering and things like that. There might be some mellow conversations going on. I know at the beginning, a lot of military folks that were mostly had separated, who had a lot of Afghan and Iraq war experience, were spending some time, you know, talking and working out their feelings and their emotions from the stress of that, their trauma that they had during those conflicts. So Karen Smith says, I follow YouTube both years, and she says she loved my commentary on historical sites and survival techniques such as stretching your water supply. She says, have you ever used isometric exercises before you get up, before retiring, and how about yoga? So I'm not really much in knowing the yoga type stuff, but you know, I talked about already, I do the IT band stretch in the morning, and then I would also do it at night before I went to bed. I would also, while I was laying down, take my toes and pull them up to try and get my foot as much of a 90-degree position as I could. That kind of also stretches out the calf muscles. That was to kind of help me with the plantar fasciitis. I tend to, when I sleep, my feet tend to kind of flop, you know, kind of point my toes out, and that's not good for teaching your tendon to retract. Okay, so I had to physically concentrate on stretching that plantar fasciitis tendon, that plantar's tendon, if you will. Sorry. And then you know, your kind of your runners type stretches. You know, your hamstring stretches, your calf stretches, things like that. You know, some body twisting type warm up type stuff. There are some people out there that do do yoga type stretches, and you'll see them. Matter of fact, I gave a girl her trail name in Maryland. I started calling her Stretch because she stretched more than anybody else I'd ever seen on the trail. So, but yeah, there's definitely you want to be stretching. If you're not stretching, and you know, and Early Riser, if you look at he's got a pre-hike video on a lot of his techniques for rubbing the knots out of the muscles. You know, he was doing 30 miles pretty routinely, and so you need to be able to work those knots out and help your muscles recover, get that lactic acid out of them, especially. Pilgrim 777 asks, do you have any tips for keeping a positive mental attitude while having a bad day on the trail or a series of bad trail days? I have heard that most hikers quit the AT because they become discouraged. Thanks. I really do believe that that is the case, and you hear that most hikers do quit because they are discouraged. Um, Physically, the trail is not that bad until maybe the last 20% when you get up way up to the north, and it's a very physical challenge. My issues I had a medical issue and then an injury that took me off the trail. My bad days were kind of focused around some of that. I discovered that I didn't mind hiking in the rain if the forecast was for like, a tenth of an inch, because that was kind of more of a misty rain, especially in the summertime, that kind of cooled you off. What I discovered is I did not like hiking in downpours, your 1, your 2 inch downpours, um, and and the really awful hot, muggy days there in late summer in Virginia were kind of awful. So for me, the discouragement came from maybe more environmental conditions that were hard to deal with. And if you remember this year, my descent into Port Clinton, the day my grandson was born, that was a pretty rough, discouraging day, and that came as a result of just the condition of the trail, and just I had the hamstring injury, and I was kind of, so I was hiking injured, and I think each person is probably different in how they deal with discouragement. Um, a, Avoid what discourages you. So I get to the point where it's like, what? If the forecast is for that kind of rain, I'm going to take a zero. I'm just gonna bow out of that particular trail day. If I know that the weather is going to be really bad, I'm going to find a way to avoid it. That's how I ended up dealing with it, because that would kind of be more discouraging to me. So I'd find a way to avoid it. Other than that, each of us have to have our coping mechanisms, but just realize that discouragement will happen. I think too, what helped me is I wasn't doing huge days, so it allowed me to take time to enjoy the trail, to stop at a beautiful overlook, to take some pictures. Um, you know, we'll hike slow in the morning. This year, I kind of talked to I had a great Verizon service, so, and then because I had the Anchor battery with me and plenty of power, I talked to my wife for about a half an hour while hiking in the morning. So I take it nice and slow. I think if you're pounding out miles and you're always concerned about miles, um, you get to the point where everything is the same. I think in 2015, Low and Slow, he quit in Pennsylvania. He just like, and I think Kiwi this last year in 2016 or 17, maybe 2017, Kiwi, same thing. They just got bored. So you have to look at, why are you here, why are you hiking it, and if it's like, for me, I'm older. Okay. I'm 59. Okay, I'm going to be 60 when I go back on the trail to finish this up. Okay, there's no redos for me. I'm going to put it off 20 years and try again. So there's a different motivation. Yeah, I didn't get to do it all in 1 year. Okay, that's not what the trail gave to me, and that's okay. I'm going to do it over a 3-year period of time now. That's okay. I'm enjoying it this way. I have anticipation. It perhaps draws at me, and so therefore it becomes easier to kind of get through those days when you're discouraged. If you have, I guess, more altruistic, is that a good word to use, reasons for doing it, other than I think this would be something cool to do. If you're just kind of I think this would be something cool to do, it's going to be a little bit harder when you get discouraged. But if it's something that you have wanted to do, you've planned to do, and it's not a spur of the moment thing, um, the guy that was hiking with me from Neal's Gap, he had only decided he was going to do that um, about 2 weeks before he showed up on Springer and started hiking. Um, I had been planning it I mean, I was watching videos since 2012 and researching, and immersing myself in the desire to do the AT for 4 years. Because of that, it's going to be a little bit, I think, a little bit easier to get over any kind of discouragement that will happen to pop up on the trail in any particular day. So, whereas if it's just a spur of the moment decision to go, I think it's going to be harder to deal with on the discouragement side. Hope that helps. So, Who Wants a Channel asks, do you recommend micro spikes for hiking in the Smokies in late February or early March? Okay, so I had micro spikes, and I packed them all the way to Hiawassee. You know, that extra over a pound of weight that I was carrying. Now I had Loas, GTXs, good tread on them. I did have one. My first fall coming down Sassafras Mountain was a result of some ice on a rock. Micro spikes may have helped there, but I'm not sure, just because of the nature of how that whole fall was set up. I think so I sent them ahead to Fontana Dam with the decision that it was looking like the trail condition was such that I didn't think that I would probably need it until I got to the Smokies. And then when I got to Fontana, looked ahead at the forecast for 10 days, decided that I would take the risk and not take them, so I sent them home. I think if you're starting out that early, February, early March, excuse me, I think micro spikes will probably be needed in the Smokies, but you might once again look at the weather and have it set up so you get wherever you get ready to get onto Springer, you look at the weather and go, I'm going to send them to Fontana. Then just send them to Fontana, because I don't think you'll need them before then. Now, talking about micro spikes and shoes, I can't remember where I heard this, and I'm sorry about the cough here. Shoe size. Okay, you go to REI, they're gonna put boots on you, and they're gonna put you on their little sloped little wooden platform or their little rocks, and you want to make sure your toes are not banging into your top of your boots. Let me tell you, when you got a pack on and you're descending 1,000 feet, I don't care how tight you got those boots, eventually you're going to be banging your toes into the end of your boots. Start out with them at least a half a size larger than you normally wear, okay? Because your feet will spread over time. Okay, I pretty religiously in the Air Force was wearing an 11.5 boot. Excuse me. Eventually, as I got older, and gravity pushing down on you, I got to about a size 12. I had some orthotics done a while back, and that guy put me in a size 12.5. And that to me was just blowing my mind, that I'd gone from an 11.5-ish really to 12.5. So when I got ready to get my Loas, I went ahead, okay, everybody says get an extra size up, got a size 13. By the time I got my trail runners here, I tried some Solomon 13s, and they were too short this year, and so I ended up with my Los Sportiva Wildcats. I went to a 13.5. Okay, so you need to start out with a size larger, a half a size larger. Don't be surprised if during the trail you don't end up, when you trade out your footwear, that you don't end up with another half size above that. Okay, and maybe even a little bit more. So over the course of a through hike, you're gonna at least your feet are gonna flatten out to at least a half size, if not a full size. So what does that mean? That means you get a really great deal on those trail runners. Don't buy 3 pairs of them that are all the same size. Okay, you're gonna be wasting your money. Go ahead and you get the first one a half size larger. On a trail runner, you're only going to get 350 to 500 miles on it. So you can maybe try it with the same size, but then the next one you better be an extra half size above that. Okay, so hey girls, sorry, you know, your feet are going to grow a little bit. So if you're got a little bit big feet, it may spread a little bit. But the good news is, you guys aren't carrying as much weight as the guys are on our bodies. So maybe the gravity effect of causing your feet to spread won't be quite as dramatic as it is for us guys, especially the portly ones like myself who carry an extra 100 pounds of body weight, more than what we really want or need. But your feet do spread. So anyway, that's a trail tip here for at the end is shoe size. Start out with a half size above that, and don't be surprised if you go another half size during the course of your through hike. Okay, and hey, trail runners, there's a guy that was bragging that his had gone 1,000 miles, and maybe structurally on the outside they were okay, but you can bet that all of the structure on the inside was shot, and that's only going to do a lot of damage to your feet. So, you know, if you're going to use trail runners, you're going to try them out. Okay, and you should not stretch a trail runner on the miles. I go 350 to 500 at the most on a set of trail runners. Okay, and that's a good pair. If you got a really cheap pair, it's probably less than that. So, all right, everybody. I hear that the bird has now joined us, or has been joined us for a while. So hopefully it does not drowning out too much of what you needed to hear today. So, all right, from sunny and now finally cool Florida. Bye, everybody. And of course, I forgot to mention, if you have any questions that you want to have answered, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below, and we'll get to them next time.